What is up guys, and welcome back to MPC Vids. In this video I wanted to explain to you guys the difference between velocity sensitivity on the pads and using the 16 levels. Now I've never really been a fan of using the velocity sensitive pads. I feel that everything I need to do with velocity can be done much better with 16 levels and in a much more predictable way. So that's the main reason I stick with 16 levels, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. One of them is a hi-hat that I've got loaded in on pad 1 here. And the other example that I'm going to use is a horn stab, which is very common in hip hop, obviously, especially that golden era kind of sound. And that's on pad 2 here. Now, if I start off with the hi-hat, you will see here that it's very, very difficult to get a consistent humanized feel with a hi-hat if you're just using the velocity sensitivity on the pads. Now, this is probably the reason you're going to be using it on a hi-hat, is because you want to try and get more feel into the hi-hat. You want to try and get a kind of groove going. You want to try and emulate drummers when they're playing the drums, because they're never going to hit the hi-hat or any part of the drum kit at exactly the same velocity every single time. So using this method makes you get those more humanized drums. I mentioned that in my previous video if you wanted to check that out. So if we have full level turned off, which is just the button at the top here, which I'm pointing to now, you turn that off and you can try and get a groove going with a hi-hat, but it's very difficult. That is me genuinely trying. I just can't get it to trigger at the right velocities that I want it to do. So if we go ahead on that and press full level, so that means at the foundation that's going to be hitting at the same volume every time we hit it. But then we go to 16 levels, and conveniently that button is right next to full level. So 16 levels. Now on the screen, basically you have a couple of options that come up. You may not be able to see them here, but one of them is velocity. So you want to make sure that's on velocity, and then you can go ahead and just close that menu. We'll go back to main. And now what that does is it puts it over the pads. It puts it over the 16 pads at different velocities. The loudest at the top right and the quietest at the bottom left. And what this means you can do is you can get much more groove into your hi-hats, because there's much more consistency in the velocities when you're hitting those pads. So if you want something quieter, you can head down to this area. If you want a louder one, you stay up on the top right. So you know how hard it's going to sound when you hit these pads, and you can hit them as hard as you want and you're going to get a nice solid velocity response from them. I really don't like doing that with velocity sensitivity. As you can see from that demonstration I just showed before, it's very, very difficult to hit consistently at different velocities, so I wouldn't use it at all for that. So another example that I've got for using velocity sensitivity is these horns, like I mentioned. And if we take off full level again, and what you can do with the 16 levels is get a fade very, very easily. And that's really what we're looking for with these horn stabs. If I try and do that fade with the velocity sensitive pad, I'll show you again, it's very, very difficult to gradually come down in the pressure that you're hitting a pad, basically. So I'll give it a go. I'm sure you can see there, I'm not getting the correct sounds that I want from that. So if I go ahead again and hit 16 levels, velocity again, we can just close that, and now we can do something like this. So you can see there I'm getting a very, very consistent fade on that particular example, and that's exactly what we want on top of the beat. We want to get that horn fading. So have a go with these guys, experiment with them and see if they work for you. If you have an example of where the velocity sensitive pads are useful, I'd love to hear those, so leave them in the comments below. Maybe I just need more practice with them, but I personally find that 16 levels can cover most of the bases that I need to use. And like I've mentioned and shown in these examples, I can get a much more consistent response from the pads, and it makes it a lot easier for beat making. Thanks for watching, and apologies for the break that's been happening recently. Obviously on SP Vids there's been a brand new drop from Roland, so it's just been absolutely mental on that channel at the moment, so I've not had any time to do MPC stuff. But it's good to get back on the MPC and share some tips with you guys. If you like these kind of tips, don't forget to hit subscribe, and if you can hit the thumbs up as well, it helps me with the algorithm, so that would be very much appreciated. I'll be back with more content as soon as I possibly can. Thank you for watching guys, and keep making beats.